There are few movements in the United States of America that are as destructive, stupid, counterproductive as the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, of course, we all understand, and we're all gonna jump in on this game immediately in this video, that Black lives do in fact matter. Human life does in fact matter. That is a value of our nation. We care about it. We're awesome like that. We're not like those other crummy nations that don't like human lives. However, Black Lives Matter, time and time again, has proven itself to be a fraud. They don't care about black lives. They never talk about black on black crime, which of course is significantly more likely to kill a black person than an evil white racist police officer is. And they don't talk about how disproportionately the homicide rates among young black males are insane when compared to the rest of the population. The black homicide rate in this country, 6 times higher than the white homicide rate. Think about that. And again, 91% of that is black on black homicide. But rather than focus on the bulk of the threat to young black men's lives in the United States of America, rather than trying to empower the police to deal with the homicide problem in those communities across the country that are so negatively afflicted, what we end up doing is trying to frame black people as the victims of evil white racism and the police as the agents of this evil white racism. And a perfect example of a case that is open and shut, one of the most obvious and justified shootings ever in the history of law enforcement, is that of Jayland Walker. Now, we're going to dive into this. I'm going to explain to you what the media is saying about this. I'm going to explain to you the protests. I'm going to explain to you all of that. But before we get into that, we have an ad. We're going to throw it over to the ad and then come back here and talk about it on the other side. Inflation is at 8.6% and climbing. You're going to need some help to get yourself back to financial safety. Call them, and the experts at Noble Gold will tell you all about a precious metals IRA, so you won't worry about a thing. And the thing is, if you call them quick and you set up a qualifying Noble Gold IRA, you will be gifted this beautiful 1/10 of an ounce gold coin from Noble Gold. It's like a little gold dime. It's got some weight to it. You absolutely will love it. Call them at 877-646-5347 or visit my affiliate link, pin comment, top of the description, noblegoldinvestments.com. So Jayland Walker is the latest and greatest hero of the Black Lives Matter movement. This unarmed black individual was shot over 60 times by the police when he was just running away. In fact, he might have been turning to surrender. In fact, if not for the body cam footage, we might hear a version of this tale where he had his hands up, just like Michael Brown. And of course, this occurred in Akron, Ohio. Can't wait for LeBron James' statement on Jayland Walker and how much he cares about this, even though we talked about how he would just ignore a killing that occurred at the school that he actually sponsors in Akron, Ohio. But whatever, we're not going to get into that. But of course, this is the tale that we're being told. This 25-year-old man didn't really do anything, was just running away from the cops for some reason, probably because he was afraid of racism, and the police just unloaded on him. And 60 shots. Oh my god, they shot him 60 times. He was unarmed. Did I mention the fact that he was unarmed and he was shot 60 times? Now, of course, this story is not true, and this has been known to not be true this whole entire time. We have footage that debunks every aspect of what the left is pushing. However, what they want to do is say, here's the last 20 seconds. In that last 20 seconds, he didn't appear to have a gun on him. Therefore, all of a sudden, unarmed black person shot must have been evil white racism. Now, to understand this, we need to go back a little bit further into Jayland Walker's history so you can understand the mindset that he was in. Apparently, this guy actually had a death in his family. His wife, she died a month prior to the incident. This is going to become relevant because one of my theories that I'm going to put forward is that this is in fact a suicide by cop. So real quick, it was initially reported that Jalen was mourning his wife, but it turns out right now, according to the reporting, it was in fact his fiance. Now, this could change completely. This could turn out to be a person who didn't even exist in the first place because the media constantly lies and spins webs of lies. So whenever you hear wife, just know that I mean fiance, and whatever, leave your angry comments for somebody who cares. Now, just one day prior, Jayland Walker actually had a police stop initiated against him for a violation that he did in fact commit, and the police pursued him. He ran away, but he crossed city limits, and then the police decided to take down his license plate and not continue the pursuit. So already they had his license plate in there, they knew he fled from the officers before, and they knew that he had some serious violations that the police needed to look into. Now, the fact that he committed a felony one day prior, not even a full 24 hours prior, fleeing the police officers, is something that is conveniently left out of a bunch of major media coverage. The fact that the police let him go in that incident, which was in fact ridiculous by the way, also left out. Another thing that typically is left out of this case is that Jayland Walker was wearing a ski mask during the time of this pursuit, where he ultimately ended up dying. Now, ski masks are often worn in cold weather, and we all know that in late June, early July, the weather definitely really cold, so there's nothing suspicious about that whatsoever. And the fact that he was fleeing the cops while wearing a ski mask, totally not suspicious either, just normal behavior. I mean, it's honestly kind of racist that the police would assume that a guy wearing a ski mask, fleeing from them, committing felonies, is somebody who needs to be arrested. Obviously, evil white racism in the cops right then and there. However, the story goes on. Now, the pursuit was not that lengthy. I mean, it was dangerous. There were high speeds. Some of it was caught on traffic camera. But one of the key things that people don't like to talk about when they describe Jayland Walker as unarmed is the fact that surveillance video actually shows Jayland Walker firing a gun at the police from within the car during the course of the pursuit.
Approximately 40 seconds after the driver of the vehicle fled from the attempted stop, a sound consistent with a gunshot can be heard on the body-worn cameras of the officers. Officers notified dispatch that a shot came out of the suspect's car door.
Getting onto 8 South of Talmadge. The reason for stop was traffic and equipment violation.
On card. And clicked.
21 shots fired. That vehicle just had a shot come out of its door.
At the time of the sound, a flash of light can be seen along the driver's side of the suspect vehicle. The vehicle pursuit continued on the expressway for several minutes, and the suspect vehicle exited onto the Archwood Avenue ramp. The pursuit proceeded through several city streets until he neared the intersection of East Wilbeth Road and Claremont Street. At that point, the driver slowed down and exited through the passenger side door of the moving vehicle wearing a ski mask.
Now, I don't know about you guys, I'm not sure if you're aware of how police work or how anybody, when they're assessing whether or not somebody is a deadly threat, actually works, but when somebody is firing a gun while fleeing on a felony from you while wearing a ski mask, they might be somebody that you would consider to be a potential threat. They might be somebody that you would consider to be armed and dangerous. However, if you look at all these different media articles, they keep saying unarmed, 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 because for the 20 seconds of him jumping out of the vehicle and him running and him turning back toward the officers looking like he was maybe going to draw a gun, Jayland Walker was in fact unarmed. You see, according to the body cam footage and according to the evidence we have right now, after firing at the police officers moments earlier, Jayland Walker actually climbed out of a window and attempted to flee from the officers. Now, in this 20-second time period, the cops had no way of knowing that he actually ditched the gun in the vehicle that he was driving in, so they were assuming that they were chasing somebody who was in fact armed with a firearm and dangerous and had fired that firearm moments before at the police officers. Again, all signs of evil white racism. And what did the police immediately do with Walker? They actually fired their tasers at him during the course of the chase, because even then, even though they knew that this guy was a deadly threat to them, that he had just fired on the officers, they attempted to tase him. It was only when Walker turned toward the officers and had his arm in and around here, and it looked like he was maybe drawing a gun, this guy who again just minutes before fired upon the police officers on the highway, they decided to shoot him. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, what about all the bullets that they fired? I got news for you. When you're actually in a life or death situation, when you're actually shooting at somebody who has shown themselves to be dangerous to you, who has actually fired upon you moments ago, nobody's counting shots. You had a bunch of officers there. They were shooting in his direction, so a lot of bullets flew. He ended up getting hit by 60. And let's be 100% honest, everybody who's counting shots in this instance doesn't actually care about the shots. If he was hit by 20 shots, would that be 2/3 of a more justified shooting? If he was hit with 10 shots, do you think these people would say, well, 5-6 of the shooting is legitimate? The number of shots that he was hit with does not matter. Nobody's counting shots in these high stress situations, and nobody on the left wing would take this case any less seriously if he was hit with fewer bullets. The fact of the matter is, the reason that Jayland Walker was in fact shot is because he fired on police officers during a chase. He had already committed a felony, presented himself as a threat, climbed out of a car wearing a ski mask, was running away, the tasers were deployed against him, and he turned toward the officers. This is not a case of his civil rights being violated, but this might actually be a case of suicide by cop. Do you think Jayland Walker, age 26, is unaware of the fact that when you fire at police officers, you are putting your life at risk? Do you think Jayland Walker is unaware of the fact that the police also carry guns, and when you threaten them with guns, your chances of being shot are exponentially higher than when you just surrender? I don't think so. I don't think that Jayland Walker is an idiot. Well, he is an idiot, but I don't think he's that big of an idiot. So what I think actually occurred in this situation, based on the motion that he used before he turned at the officers, is Jayland Walker was actually committing a suicide by cop. He clearly and obviously presented himself as a threat to the police officers. He took action after action that were in fact idiotic. He was wearing a ski mask. Everything about this person showed us that he was a threat, and him ditching the gun leads me to believe that there is in fact a chance that this person, who absolutely refused to surrender under any circumstances, was actually trying to kill himself through the police officers. I think that's what was going on in this situation. You have somebody whose wife ended up dying again around a month prior. So when you look at all this, when you calculate all the evidence, when you add it all up, it makes perfect sense. However, of course, that doesn't matter to Black Lives Matter. That doesn't matter to the left wing. So the response to the shooting was for the city of Akron to cancel the 4th of July, because America can't have a birthday because an obvious criminal who was obviously a threat to the police ended up being shot by the police that he was just firing at moments prior. You've seen a ton of headlines across the internet.com about how his name was Jayland Walker, about how he was unarmed. All of these articles lying by omission, not including the fact that, again, he did have a gun in his possession. He fired that gun at the officers moments prior. There is a video of him firing that gun at the officers moments prior. And in that situation, everybody can understand why the police ended up firing at this person. And anybody counting shots, as I said, is a BSer. They don't care about the number of shots. That does not matter. And if you think in high-end stressful situations that people are counting bullets, you're ridiculous and absurd in every possible way. Now, honestly, there really isn't a lot to this story. I mean, the left is just leaving key facts out in order to ignore the fact that the shooting was 100% justified. And I think my favorite response to all this nonsense put forward by the left wing comes from a follower of mine called Kenny Haynes, who tweeted the following: "What is this world coming to when a man can't dress in a ski mask, lead police on a high-speed chase, and take a couple of shots at him without the police killing him?" Now, I'd like to say that's essentially the argument being put forward by the left wing, but in reality, what we're seeing is people going into full denial mode. You had Nina Turner, who, by the way, was endorsed by all these left-wing progressives who swear up and down, left and right, that their candidates aren't the woke candidates. The woke candidates are the corporate Democrats, and they're totally different, even though the Bernie Sanders ilk, that branch of Democratic Party, is the most woke, talking about how he was unarmed. And again, it's just an absurdity. Obviously, you have no way of knowing that this person who just fired upon you guys as police officers when you were clearly identifiable as police officers ditched the gun in the backseat of the car. You were fully within your rights to assume that somebody who's just shooting at you moments earlier did not leave the gun behind in some weird way in the 20 seconds of time that you had to determine from when he left the car and when he turned toward the officers, ultimately leading to his death. Jayland Walker is responsible for the actions of Jayland Walker. This is not a civil rights issue. This is not a case of a black man being killed by an evil white racist officer or an evil white racist system. This is the story of somebody acting like a criminal, posing an imminent threat to the police officers, and any reasonable person in those same circumstances being able to react in that exact way. So there's nothing to this story. There's no case here. Yet Black Lives Matter is desperate for attention. It's an election year, so you gotta gin up some kind of hysteria around the racism in order to do the thing. Now, the protesters are out there. They're doing their thing. Things are getting crazy. We all know how this goes. Hopefully this doesn't lead to a year-long rioting spree by the left and then one incident of violence by the right, so we can have another day to talk about how bad the right wing is. But honestly, that's really all I have for you guys today. There's not much to break down in terms of legalese or anything like that. It is clearly and obviously a justified shooting. Top 10 most justified shooting in the history of the United States of America. And if you disagree with me, you're just wrong. If you're counting shots, you're a buffoon. If you're somebody who thinks he was unarmed, even though he was firing at the officers moments before and they had 19 seconds, 20 seconds to make that decision, you're a bum. Get out of town. Leave me a like anyway, because you should always like my videos, but you get out of town. As usual, you guys know the drill. If you like the video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description box of this video. This has been me talking about the thing. Till next time.